Alright, and welcome back, fellow survivors, to Zombie Apocalypse, The Walking Code. This is going to be Lesson 8. This is going to be the lecture portion of Lesson 8. I've gotten some really good feedback on my videos. A lot of people have said that they like the way I'm doing it, splitting up the lecture part first, and then having a nice demo after that, because then they can refer back to either one, and it gives us a little bit more time to lecture and then a little bit more time for the demo if I split it up. Alright, so lesson 8 is going to be on enumerations. Enumerations are kind of a really cool thing in C++ once you understand what they're used for. A lot of people don't even bother to retain this because they think that enumerations just are too hard to understand. They're really not. They're really useful. They're really versatile. Whenever we're talking about anything like such as a state machine, we use enumerations quite a bit. If you do any type of like OpenGL programming or anything like that, you're going to use enumerations a lot. In this lesson, we are going to learn what an enumeration actually is. Then we're going to learn how to use them in our program. And then the last thing we're going to learn about is how to manipulate enumerations, because you can manipulate these things to give you different values. Alright, but first, before we got to know how to manipulate it, we got to know how to use it, and before we know how to use it, we got to know what it is. So that's where we're going to start. An enumeration is basically a data type that we create, sort of. Alright, now this isn't, if you've heard about object-oriented stuff before, this is not object-oriented programming. If you have not heard about object-oriented programming before, forget the fact that I mentioned object-oriented programming. That's a whole nother kind of fork that you can go in programming. We'll get there, don't worry. But an enumeration is a set of constants. Alright, we looked at constants in the last lesson. Now we're going to advance our knowledge of constants. These constants all relate back to unsigned integers. Now, an unsigned integer is, well, it's an integer, which is a whole number, but it's unsigned, meaning it can be from 0 to whatever the maximum number allowable for that type of integer is. If it's just an integer, then it's 4 billion, whatever, how many million, whatever. If it is a short, then it's whatever the maximum value of a short is, but you always start from 0. There are no negative numbers with unsigned integers. I don't remember if we went over that or not, but we're being chased by a zombie horde, so let's not even look back. Alright, they're defined by the keyword enum. So if I wanted to make an enumeration, I use the keyword enum right here. I give it a name, just like I would any other variable, my enum. I use curly brackets, not parentheses, not square brackets, curly brackets. Be sure you guys are getting used to the different types of brackets that you have to use. Parentheses, square brackets, curly brackets. All three are used in C++ to some degree, and if you mix it up, it won't compile right, and it's caused frustration for I don't know how many beginning programmers and senior programmers too, that they just basically used the wrong bracket type. Now you'll notice that I have item A right here, comma, item B, and then dot dot dot, meaning I can extend this out as long as I want to. When I'm done setting up my enumeration, I have a closed curly bracket, and then I have a semicolon. Alright, don't forget your semicolon, please. You'll get a nice fat compile error if you do. Now, you'll notice that these are in all caps. They're in all caps because an enumeration is a set of constants. And if you remember the convention from lesson 7 that we talked about, is that constants are in all caps, so we can tell them apart easily from our actual variables. Okay, constants cannot change once you make them. Now, unsigned integers, you might say, well, Adam, in your example here, I don't see any numbers, right? Well, that's because we don't have to. An enumeration takes the first constant and it assigns it a value of 0. Alright, let me get some pointer options here. Here we go, felt tip pin. Here we go. It takes this one and assigns it a value of 0. The next one in line, it assigns it a value of 1. If there were a third item here, which there's not, it would assign it a value of 2. and so on and so forth, dot, dot, dot. All right. So, is there a way to manipulate this? Yes, there is. And the way to manipulate this is, let me get my pointer back. There we go. The way we're going to manipulate this is I can set items to a certain value. Okay? So, we use to relate integers to names. We've kind of already gone over that. We start with 0 and increase by 1. So, item A is equal to 0. Item B is equal to 1. We can assign values to the elements of an enumeration. Now, notice here in my example, right, I've changed the my enum example a little bit. And item A doesn't have an equal sign or anything after it in the example here. Look down here, not up here. All right. Item B is equal to 15, and item C doesn't have an equal sign after it either, or any value. Now, what's going to happen here, let me go back to my pen, here we go, is item A is going to have a value of 0. All right. Item B is going to have a value of 15. And item C is going to have a value of 1 greater than the value after it, which would be 16 in this case. All right. So item B is equal to 15. Item C, therefore, is equal to 16. Go back to my arrow. Item A has a value of 0 because I did not assign a value to that. All right. So, we are going to revise our zombie scoring system from Lesson 7. What we're going to do is we're going to create an enumeration of zombie types. We are going to assign points to those zombie types because there's several different zombie types in zombie apocalypse. They all just don't shuffle around aimlessly or anything like that. We're going to have a walker type zombie, which is really my favorite type of zombie, if I can just get off track here for a minute. This is more of the George Romero type zombies from like Night of the Living Dead and the first Dawn of the Dead movie in the 70s, 80s, and things like that. The second type of zombie here is the runner type zombie, and this is what you saw in the revised version of Dawn of the Dead in 2004. I don't like this zombie particularly. Just from my point of view, I don't think anybody should be able to run faster in death than they did in life, but that's just me. And finally, just to make things interesting, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, we're going to have giant zombies that are worth 50 points apiece. Okay, so again, we're in zombie apocalypse, so might as well make it fun and keep score of a few things. All right. We'll be back with the next part of this lesson, which will include a demo, in which we'll walk through the enumeration and we'll change some of these things around. So just remember, the walkers worth 10, runners are worth 25, giants are worth 50. I'll see you on the demo side of this lesson. Thank you for watching.